Andy Griffith. Did you ever see that show?
What?
Andy Griffith.
I didn't.
Wow. Too young.
I'm too young. That's the story of my life.
His son was too old.
Ended? All right.
Eric, can you tell that we're starting the meeting? The boys outside.
That's odd.
What's that? Oh, there.
I guess I have to take this home and
You'll need
shred
it.
it. The notes, I guess I have to take it home and shred it.
Up to.
Yeah, add something to the agenda.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the West Melbourne City Council regular meeting to order. It's November 1st, 2022. It's now 7:22 p.m. If you'd stand for the pledge in a moment of silent meditation, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Can we have a roll call of City Council?
Mayor Rose.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Young.
Here.
Councilmember Bentley.
Here.
Councilmember Ditmore. Councilmember Frampus.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell.
Here.
Councilmember Adams.
Here.
Great, thank you. And welcome everyone for attending this November 1st, 2022 meeting of the West Melbourne City Council. We started late today because we had a shade meeting not open to the public on the settlement of a road construction that happened in 2015. So it's ongoing. But I just want to thank everybody for bearing with us for starting a few minutes late. Members of the public are welcome to speak on any issue, whether it's on tonight's agenda or anything of importance to you. If you'd like to address City Council, if you'd fill out a speaker card, they're located by the front door, and give it to our city clerk. Each person will be allocated 3 minutes to address City Council. Please address all your comments to this chair.
Mayor, if I could, I'm going to make a motion.
You
You want me to wait till later, or?
talking about from the shade meeting?
No, to add something to the agenda.
No, this would be the time now, but I don't know what we're adding.
Well,
Go ahead.
let's say, yeah, okay. Do I have the floor? Do I have the floor?
have the floor,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to add an item to the agenda tonight, and would be, I guess, item D to the action agenda. Want to discuss or have the city manager discuss what he learned at the communication he had with the Brevard County fire officials. I think it's kind of important at this point because we were waiting for some information. There's also a union member from the Brevard County firefighters is also here. Their vice president is here. He's also a resident of the city of West Melbourne. And I think he would probably have some input as well. But I think it's important that we get the update from Mr. Rohde as to what took place during that meeting, because we've all been waiting for that.
I don't think that we need to add an agenda item. He can certainly do that during his staff report.
I'm going to...
Action that can be taken tonight anyway, because when we advertise something being a public meeting, we want the public to be able to speak on it. And adding it this late hour is not, I mean, the reason you would add it like something like that would be to take action, and we're not going to take any action until we get this. I believe it's on the agenda for our next meeting, Mr. City Manager.
December 13th meeting is the fire study from the fire consultant
Okay.
from CMA.
So, I mean, I'd rather I just want to know if I'm able to make the motion, and I'm going to make a motion to add it to the agenda, and we'll take it if I get a second. If we don't, we'll move forward. So I'm making a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion dies, lack of a second. Thank you. All right, did you want to make a motion on the shade meeting?
I think we covered that. So do we need to cover it, Cliff? Do we need to do any more? No. That's
No,
it.
we didn't. So we're good?
We're good.
Okay. All right, so we have a couple new employees. Thank you for waiting. Our first new employee is works for the Parks and Recreation Department. Rick Beaufray, would you introduce your Special Populations Coordinator?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, very happy and proud to introduce Ivy Gonzalez as the Special Populations Coordinator based at the Field of Dreams Park. This lady comes with a lot of experience, and she has more than hit the ground running. Within days of being here, she was on to known contacts she's had. She has worked for the city of Castleberry, the city of Winter Springs. She's held numerous positions in therapeutic rec roles with adult seniors and special needs and young children with therapeutic rec. And within days, she did a podcast for Space Coast Daily, and it had 45,000 hits within 24 hours. It was a complete tour of the park with a contact that she had that videoed it all. We had 3 events at the park last weekend that she was very instrumental in being a part of and setting up and actively taking charge of, basically. We had over 700 people at Field of Dreams Park for those 3 events. 2 of them were very much special needs. They're autistic children. And they had over 300 people at the event on Sunday. So once again, very happy to introduce Ivy Gonzalez.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a
Tell
pleasure
it,
to be here.
if there's anything left, tell us about yourself. Go ahead.
I grew up in Winter Park, so
All right.
I'm not too far from home. Been in Brevard County for about 12 years now, and I'm very honored and pleased to be here and work with you and be a part of the Field of Dreams. It's a beautiful, most unique park I've ever seen in my entire life, and I'm very proud to host and coordinate programs there.
Very
For
good.
the opportunity.
Miss Adams, you have your light on.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for you because I was really excited to see you come on for this position. West Melbourne continues, as you can see, through our parks, but also through the rest of our community to be that place for people of all abilities. So what are you seeing in terms of the future and what you'd like to see at that park specifically?
I would definitely love to see more special ability seniors. We have a lot of seniors in the community that don't have places to go and have special needs. And on October 14th, I had the very first Seniors Day at the park with special needs adults, and it was amazing. They interacted with the children. It was a beautiful combination of intergenerational programming, which just evolved just in a couple of hours with the children interacting with the seniors that have dementia. And it was very successful.
Wow.
Very nice add to our programming.
And are you going to see the same thing in terms of adults with disabilities?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, I agree. I think that's great. And I know the park is getting a little stagnant with when they get a certain age, there's not as much to do. And we talked about some maybe special equipment that they can exercise and do different things. So are you able to devote most of your time to that, or are you all your time to that, or you do the you a skater too, or how is your time divided up?
My entire time is Field of Dreams special needs population.
Excellent.
Completely,
Okay.
yes. And we definitely want to bring in more adults, more children, and it's not just about using the equipment, it's what you do at the park
Yes.
to make it an experience.
Very good.
And that's
Wow.
what we did. They didn't get on the swing sets, they didn't go down the slides or anything. We just had a really fun day at the park.
Well, that's exciting. It's good to hear.
Thank you.
Very good. Welcome aboard.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Pleasure meeting all of you.
Yeah. And if you turn around, we got our ace photographer. Next up, we have our building official, Tom Ford, will introduce the new fire code inspector.
I brought a cheat sheet. Evening, Mayor, council
Evening.
members.
Good evening.
I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our new fire inspector. Her name is Carla Moore. She spent the last 4 years with the Orange County Fire Department, 2 years in administration, and the last 2 years doing annual inspections and on various other fire inspections, which she has started from the day she walked in. She started right into our computer system, Mobilize, because they did use it there in Orange County. So it was great having someone step right into the role. I'll be the first to admit that. Carla lives in St. Cloud, so she's got a little bit of a ride to get home. But the first day here, I asked her, I said, so how was the ride? And I guess from where she lives in St. Cloud to where Orange County, she worked in Orange County, was a much more hectic ride than the one on 192 out to West Melbourne. She stays home, takes care of her father. She's got a 16-year-old daughter, Abigail, who lives in Point Siena. And we're looking forward to having her do quite a bit of time here with the city of West Melbourne.
Very good. All right.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you all.
So as a fire inspector, do you go to every building and see if they're compliant, or just new ones, or a combination of both, or what is your job?
Combination of both. So as the sole fire inspector currently for the city of West Melbourne, it would be my job to double check compliance for existing buildings and eventually new construction. By the way, this building is also on my list. It's been a while, so I'm going to have to reach out and set up an appointment time. But yes, we've got quite a few occupants in the city that are overdue for various reasons for their inspections. So that's my #1 priority, is getting us caught up. There was a change in the verbiage for the new code cycle. The fire code now says that authorities having jurisdiction shall inspect occupants either annually, biannually, or triannually, instead of the previous language, which was AHJs should inspect those occupants. Yep. So it's a big plate. Yeah. So we're taking it as fast as we can, and trying to run with it and moving forward.
Excellent. It's exciting. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. If you turn around, Eric has our. Last but not least, Acting Chief Rich Cordeaux will introduce his 2 new police officers.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I have the honor tonight of introducing our 2 newest officers to you. To my right, we have Nicholas Volk, and to my left, we have Travis Cofresi. There's no N in that. Everybody seems to say Confresi, but it's Cofresi. Mr. Cofresi comes to us from the military, while Mr. Volk comes to us from law enforcement in the Palm Beach County area. So I'll let each of them tell you a little bit about themselves. Try to keep it to about 15 minutes or less. Okay?
Afternoon, my name is Nicholas Volk. I come with about 7 years of law enforcement experience down south. Excited to start in a smaller city and happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
Did you specialize in any particular aspect, or?
I did some CID stuff, some criminal investigations, and I trained the new guys. That was the majority of what I did, was training the new people, field training officer. Yeah, I enjoyed training people.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Wait, I think he's allocated the rest of his time. So you got 28 and a half minutes left.
Good evening. First off, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to serving the city of West Melbourne. So my background, I did 8 years active duty in the Army as a military police and a criminal investigator. I was stationed in Texas, Missouri, Virginia, and also worked at the Pentagon as well.
And where did you go to your law enforcement?
So it was throughout my whole military career. Went through basic training and advanced individual training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
And which academy do you go to? Local academy?
Yes, so I went to Eastern State Florida College. I did the equivalency of training program there.
Very good. All right. Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time's up. Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Be safe. Our first public hearing, comprehensive plan map amendment for property located at 1340 South Wickham Road in West Melbourne, Florida.
Okay, for the record, I'm Christy Fisher, the City Planning Director, and I don't think I'm hoping my item's on there. Eric, did you happen to see if I had saved a show to the PowerPoint agenda? It should be in there under agendas and presentation. Okay, that's it. Thank you. We've already gone through this, but just again for the record, this is agenda items 5A and 5B. It's loading up here. And what we ask is that you all make a separate motion on each of the ordinances, and we can have the city attorney read the title to the ordinances. But it's for the property located at 1340 South Wickham. This is the second reading. This is the location. I know council's familiar with this, but in case anyone else, needs to know where it is, it's at the corner of Pinecrest Avenue and Wickham, and it's a small property. The property owner, wants to make it into more of a landscape and outdoor living retail business, and he's in the county currently, or was in the county up until the last city council meeting. He's now in the city limits, so to go from the county to the city, he needs the city's future land use and the city's zoning, and that's what this meeting would finalize. So the first item would be that future land use designation from the comprehensive plan, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you would see that the red color is the colors of the designation that we think would be most compatible with that property, which is the commercial. It is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and there are no capacity issues if they were to connect to sewer. And, as I said, it's, that red color is consistent with some of the other red commercially designated properties on Wickham. For the rezoning was agenda item 5B. They had a business use type of zoning in the county, and the closest thing that would make that property compatible and consistent with what we have on Wickham is what we call the zoning district. It's called the Commercial Wickham Zoning District, and it would also allow the use that they're proposing to have there. We told you that the Planning and Zoning Board, as your local planning advisory board, did its public hearing on October 12th. You all conducted your first reading on October 18th. And if you all are so inclined, if you could do the second reading and approve the two ordinances, and if I could ask the city attorney to read the titles to those ordinances, and I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cliff. Can you read those?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lightly, a little closer.
Gotcha. Get a little closer. Ordinance number 2022-22, an ordinance of the city of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use for a parcel of land, 0.83 acres located at 1340 South Wickham Road, and as more fully described herein, from Brevard County NC Neighborhood Commercial to City of West Melbourne Commercial, providing an effective date. This is second reading. Ordinance number 2022-23, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, rezoning a parcel of land 0.83 acres located at 1340 South Wickham Road from Brevard County BU1A Neighborhood Retail Commercial to City of West Melbourne C-W Commercial Wickham, providing an effective date. This is second reading.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Does anybody from the public wish to speak on either one of these two ordinances? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to make a motion to approve the second reading ordinance number 2022-22, change the future land use from Brevard County to the city of West Melbourne, commercial.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any discussion? Christy Fisher, I know that one of their things they said they wanted to look like and act like Rockledge Gardens. Rockledge Gardens does weddings and food and everything. Will they have the same classification in that, or just going to be plants and shrubberies and things?
It's just going to be plants and whatnot, yeah. I think Mr. Corella probably was referring to sort of that Rockledge Gardens is known. It's known as being a high-quality place. You can get real answers about plants. I think that's really what he meant. But no, he hadn't talked to the planning department about having it be a venue. No.
All right, okay, but yeah, I was just saying what I know that Rockledge does, so very good. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now we need a motion for ordinance 2022-23. Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I make a motion to approve second reading ordinance 2022-23, rezoning 1340 South Wickham Road from Brevard County to the city of West Melbourne for commercial Wickham, with the condition that the small-scale comprehensive plan map is approved.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next we have, that concludes the public hearings, public forum. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor, we have 3.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right. All right, first speaker is Ted McCursh. Please state your name and address for the record, and all speakers have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ted McCurcher. I live at 2470 Windchaser here in West Melbourne. I've been a West Melbourne resident since 1976. What I want to talk about tonight is my opposition to the Heritage Boulevard Extension Doherty project. I know it's not on the agenda tonight, but I just wanted to make my feelings known that I object to that. The information being used for the project is outdated and flawed in today's times. They're using traffic studies from 2019. 2022 is so far removed from that data, so I wish to have it. I'd like the project to be canceled. I know the city has invested a lot of money in the project, but throwing bad money over bad money is just not right. The environmental impact to those corridors, I mean, we've devastated so much of the environment through West Melbourne, through its development. Those small patches that would still be remaining are precious to the environment, especially for water recharge. Flooding, you know, they say it's not going to be a 100-year flood. We're having 100-year floods every other year nowadays. So we need that water recharge areas that would be taken up with that hard pavement. I know it's in the budget, but again, that budget was predicated on old dollars, new dollars. You can just throw that budget figures out the window because it just would not fly. Last off, I want to thank you all for being service to West Melbourne. I would just like to ask for a simple show of hands who might be in favor of a motion to kill this project, if anybody would put their hand up.
We don't really take
Okay.
that. But,
It's not allowed.
yeah.
Okay, I understand that. But anyway, I thank you for your service again.
Thank you, Ted. Dave Westridge.
Mr. Mayor, City Councils, Manager of the City. My name is Dave Westridge. I live at 2460 Windchaser Court in West Melbourne, Florida. I also would like to reiterate what my neighbor Ted brought up. As a board member for our homeowners association, We are in the process of bringing something to the city council as a total neighborhood, that we are against this for the traffic impact, for the potential crime, for residential and commercial access that will potentially be going through our neighborhood. I have a 7-year-old son who attends West Melbourne School for Science, so it's right around the corner from here. He likes to go out with his friends, bike riding, bicycling, whether it's skateboarding, whatever. The potential impact that I see is just another Henry shortcut avenue. That's not why I bought into the city of West Melbourne. We're in the neighborhood that I'm specifically in. It's a safe neighborhood. It's a gated community, and I'd like to keep it safe for my family. I travel quite a bit, so I'm gone. So the potential impact that we have, not only for the citizens and the residents of West Melbourne, but for the nature and environmental impact I see is great. So I'd like to voice my opinion for opposition to extending that road. Again, thank you for your service. I know it's sometimes an ungrateful, unthanked job, but thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for your time.
And our last speaker is Joe Kiefer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Any of y'all before except her and Mr. Ditmore. I saw him out there too. The elections day. I've been here in Melbourne for only 8 years. I live at 291 Woodland. My name is Carol Joseph Kiefer, Jr. Too much stuff, but I go by Joe. So anyway, I'm here to volunteer for the city advisory board of some sort you have. I don't know what that entails exactly, but I'd be like to find out what you think it's all about, how I could help.
We'll have our city clerk contact you, and you can look on the website. It has some, but sometimes we have other vacancies that come up. So great, we can certainly use volunteers.
Do you need to know anything about me at all, or for this to take place?
Hey, you still have 2 minutes and 15 seconds. It's all you. No.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Take your time. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. Approve the minutes from our last meeting, reappoint a member for our Board of Trustees on the Police Board, and authorize the city manager to approve the 3rd amendment to the interlocal agreement for Brevard County stormwater education. Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Young?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Our first action item tonight is amendment to the initial site plan for Eden at Heritage Lakes, and they are asking to extend it to our next meeting.
Yeah, just for the record, as you know, on October 18th, the applicant from Eden Living wanted to be able, to continue the meeting till today. We gave them a deadline of last week of submitting, the revised architectural drawings so that we could see it as staff, make sure we had it in hand. We have a deadline, with our city manager when to get things in. They were not ready. So that's the bottom line. So they're asking, they would like to come before you November 22nd. Should give them plenty of time here in the next week or so to get something to staff and us to, review it and get a staff report ready.
Very good. Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to make a motion that we continue the amendment to the initial site plan issue till November 22nd, 2022, as requested by staff and the development team.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
I'll second.
Any discussion? So we're making pretty good progress with them as far as...
Yes. They heard your comment about the balconies, and they've added the balconies back. That much I know. Okay. I haven't seen the rest of it, but that much I know.
Very good. All right.
Good.
We have a motion second on the floor. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 7-0. Next up, we have selection of banking service provider.
Hi, good evening. I'm Candace Blake. I am your Assistant Finance Director, and we recently went out for a request for proposals for our banking service provider. Just good business to check every once in a while, kind of see what your options are. And through the selection committee and the ranking and everything, it's recommended that we go with Bank of America. So if you have any questions, I am available.
Yes. First of all, who is on your committee? I don't think it said in our group.
We had 3 finance individuals who deal with banking day to day, including myself, one of our utility accounts coordinators, and our accounting operations manager. And then they were the ranking committee members. And then advisory, we had Tom Bradford for the IT side, Tim Rohde just as the city manager, good for him to know. And then Margie Starkey, finance director, went out, got our references, that sort of thing.
Okay. I guess one of the questions I had was, you had these ranked in certain orders, but we didn't really get a good understanding, or at least it's not in our packet that I saw, is the ECRs, the earned rate of credit that they give. Because I know, just looking at it, and again, this is not my field of expertise, but just if a bank charges $100 a month, just making up a number, but they give you extra credit for your whatever you have in there, it can zero it out. Some seem like they're giving more, some are giving less, I'm sure. So how do we actually compare all those?
So with that, they all provided their own amounts. They were all, I will say, mostly similar in those amounts. But there was also the stipulation that depending on the market, things fluctuate. So these numbers are not going to be the firm numbers that you're getting when the contract starts. So while we use those as a review, we didn't put a lot of weight into the pricing or the ECRs, that sort of thing, because that wasn't, trying to think the best way to put that. Because it is fluctuating and it is something that is pretty similar across the board, that wasn't something we reported on.
Seemed like that's a real important number. I mean, one of these could be $180,000 a year. That's kind of significant to me. I mean,
it is extremely important. It is. So we did look. We compared all of the client analysis fees to go with that. So Bank of America was one of the ones that they made it very clear to explain that right now we're paying about a little over $1,600 a month in bank fees. That also the earning credit that kind of cancels out some of that. Bank of America is looking at proposing around $1,400. And they're looking at giving us the first 12 months with no client analysis fees and things like that. So that way any of our earnings are our earnings. It's not just canceling out those fees. So it is something, I guess, and I shouldn't have said we didn't put a lot of weight into it. It's something that we looked into very closely, but it wasn't our highest ranked thing that we looked at.
and what happens after the first year?
Then we go to that about $1,400 a month that they proposed.
And all of them did the same thing, or?
They didn't all provide that kind of incentive to switch over. Some had 6 months, some had just, they would waive the initial fees, just the transition fees, that kind of thing. And then they all provided pricing. And when you based off of the pricing for each account and things like that, Bank of America was one of the lowest.
It seemed like it was very impossible to really compare them apples to apples.
It's extremely hard. It is a very thorough process, and so, I mean, some of the RFPs came in, the responses were over 300 pages, some of them were 50 pages. So looking at that, personally, when I did my ranking, I looked at the pricing that we requested and then compared that apples to apples, and then anything additional they had was just kind of add-on. So it just, everyone kind of ranked them a little bit differently based on how they reviewed them.
And on your attachment number 2, you have your rows, all 3 of your rows had the same questions, but in the columns, the numbers are different. What's the difference in those 3 different criteria categories? Because it doesn't say what they are.
So, okay, so those were the different individuals who ranked it. I just removed the names. So we had like the first ranking was one individual, and then that had each bank in the columns, and then the second set of rows that was another.
Oh, these are three different people. Okay.
Yeah, 3 different people doing the rankings.
Oh, okay. That was pretty confusing. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify this. This is going to be used for us for our employees. We're going to be transacting business, or is this going to be just for us to pay our bills, or what's it going to be for?
This is for us to pay our bills. This has nothing to do with employees. We don't include any kind of employee benefits because that's not what our bank is for. Our bank is for the city's bills and where we keep our money.
So we're not going to be using them to do wire transfers, to do direct deposits and stuff for the employees?
That's part, I guess, okay. That, we use that to pay our bills, so yes. So yes, it's
Okay.
deposits and
I don't know if I want to go into this too much, but I will tell you that I have found that my recent experience with the Bank of America was not good, and just recent enough in the last couple of months. And I would see where it would become a problem for our employees if they would have some of the same issues that I had. And I was forced to use them for a particular reason, which I had to use them. And I will tell you that in my opinion, they are not, not customer friendly when it comes to some of these issues. And I feel our employees will have issues. And based upon my recent experience, which I've never had an issue with them in the past, but based on what I've seen, and I saw them change the rules midstream on me for no particular reason, which they couldn't justify, and it caused me to take several trips up to a local branch to try to figure out why. So I will not support anything to do with Bank of America, especially with employees, because I think it's going to be a problem. And I would encourage the council to really think twice about this one. I will tell you, I would not normally speak up about something like this, but what I encountered was pretty bad.
Could I ask just for clarification, was it you receiving the money or you sending the money for the payments?
It involved making deposits at the account, and they would give you a 3-day hold, which is fine, and then they turn around and did a 10-day hold after they did a 3-day hold, with no reason whatsoever, period. And then the reason they did eventually give was unfounded. And then after the check had cleared completely through, they still had a week left to hold on it. And I had to physically go into there to get them to take the hold off because they had already received the funds, and they knew they had received the funds. They had documentation that they received the funds. And it was their policy. They just decided to change it midstream after they told me it was a 3-day. It's an issue that I think our employees are going to have a problem with. And that's what I'm concerned about. And it's just an issue. And I've been in there before. Their lobby's been closed over here. They've had issues. I'm a little bit concerned about dealing with that based on my own experiences I had recently with them.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley?
Thank you, Mayor. Who's our current bank?
Truist. They were previously SunTrust and then did a merger, I believe, earlier this year and became Truist.
And was it just a routine thing to have you go out, or were you unhappy with something about Truist? Or you don't want to answer?
Well, their online portal wasn't extremely user-friendly. They had some security settings that made it very difficult, and as a new employee, when I came in, I would have to have IT let me in to access the portal, which was a little inconvenient. But, I mean, I didn't have a lot of experience with them myself coming in, but it is good business just every once in a while to look at things like that, put out a request for proposals, and see if there are better options. So.
Thank you.
But we've been looking for a new bank for a couple of years. It's been on our agenda, and so not since you just came in, so I don't know. I mean, I know we have a certain contract, right? Is that correct? Or you don't, or do you know? You don't know? Okay.
No, we were not under any contract. One of the things that Candace brought with her when she came in, both her and Margie had the opportunity to go out and do a banking RFP, which has definitely been on the list for the city for a while, and got to it this year.
It's been on our agenda for about 2 years, but it keeps getting pushed. And I'm glad they have it. I really need more information before I'm ready to vote on this. Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Mayor. What's the cost to switch over to a different bank?
With their proposals, they've waived the new implementation fees. So at this point, it's just the staff time to get everything ready and get it over.
So we don't have to purchase new checks. We don't have to purchase new letterhead.
It's all included in the incentive. It's part of the implementation fees, yes.
I've also had consternation with Bank of America. I would surely support the second in line, Wells Fargo, but that's it. Thank you.
Mr. McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Truist is going through that merger, and to their own admission, it's been an uphill process for them, and I experienced that firsthand. I've also had experience with Bank of America, and is it fair to say there's a big difference between small business and big business? Would you consider City of West Melbourne big business for them?
I would say based on the amount we have in the bank, yes.
So we would get a different level of commitment from them from a customer service perspective.
We will have a specific relationship manager, and one of the things that one of our references came back and said was that the relationship manager that they've had has been very responsive, very helpful, always checking in, that sort of thing, and that relationship you have with your relationship manager really sets up a lot for how the tone of the banking is going to go. So I think that would definitely help.
Right, and historically, and I can't speak to the other banks, but Bank of America is very much a wealth management kind. You get treated differently, and it shouldn't be that way. We would hope that everybody gets treated that way fairly, but I think from a business to business, there's a different perspective, at least in my experience. So I would support the recommendation.
Ms. Adams, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. With our previous contract, was it a 5-year contract? Because we were just told that there's no current end date, correct?
We had original.
No, I don't believe we were under any obligation anymore with Truist.
Okay, so is there a reason that we are looking into committing to a bank for 5 years?
I would say the original Truist contract most likely had that kind of standard term, but I think it's been on a year-to-year basis with Truist for the last 10 years or more. So we're far past the original contract term. I just don't know exactly when we started with Truist to speak to that intelligibly. But it is, when we put together the RFP, especially when Margie, she got a whole lot of information from different cities and everything. And this kind of contract term is pretty standard for what other cities are doing.
Okay, would there be any flexibility with that? Just because I have no personal experience with Bank of America, but understanding both sides that have been shared by other council members is just something that's coming to mind.
It would have to be something we would discuss with Bank of America to make sure that they were comfortable with it, but I think as the city, we would be okay with maybe being a little flexible there.
Okay, thank you.
Are the hours of the bank open important at all to the city?
We looked at their holiday hours. They provided their regular hours too. The thing that was more important, I guess I didn't look specifically at their exact hours as long as they were open during City Hall hours. But we wanted branches within 5 miles of the city limits, and Bank of America has 3. So that was a big plus on their side, because even if they had to close one branch, there's still 2 options. So we have some flexibility there.
But I know that they were closed for, 10 months during COVID and completely closed. And now their hours, I think they're open just till 4 o'clock on 1 or 2 particular days. And then the other days they're open like from 10 to 2 or something like that. So I don't think that checks your box, but.
We use the bank for deposit purposes, the physical branch. That's what we use it for. And that's one of those things that we normally have an officer come, take the money, and it's in the middle of the day. So I can see the concern there, but I think that we're a little more flexible with that.
But middle of the day, but they don't usually do that between 4 and 5?
I don't believe so. I normally see him. Yeah.
11 a.m.? Okay. All right. And what I would like, though, is I know you have the spreadsheet, but like you said, some of these are giving you, they're charging you more, but they're giving you a lot more credits on different things, basis points and everything else. So I like to compare apples to apples. Like you said, one of them gives you first year free, some of them don't. I don't know what that means. I guess I'm looking for the total package and the best value for the city. I don't have a particular problem with them most of the time. Being a stockholder, can I even vote on this? And that wasn't the question for you. That's the man of the hour there. That Cliff, you're silent. Okay, now.
Yeah, there's no special benefit to you related to this particular item. So I don't believe it's a conflict.
I'm pretty sure my net worth doesn't really compare to measurable to theirs. So just putting that out there for the public record. But in all seriousness, I think there's more information that we can get. All these are probably good companies. I know TD Bank is walking distance from the city, open 7 days a week. Some of these are they're not, well, we know Bank of America is not even open 40 hours a week. So if that's important, but if you're doing electronically, I don't know that matters at all. But some of these numbers are pretty close, the top three or so, pretty close. So again, I wasn't there during your interviews, but did you ask all the right questions? If you have some of these with 50 pages and some of these with 300 pages, I don't know. We're comparing apples to apples and what's the best value for the city. So, again, you didn't really give me an answer what happens after the first year because
it goes to just the normal price rate that they did provide a normal price rate with their RFP submission, just as everybody else did. And that's where we're looking at still having a savings of about $200 a month on our client analysis fees.
Okay. But with 10 million in there, it seems like we ought to get more than just the 0.1, 0.2 or whatever on that. So, and I know some places are giving us over 2.5% for the first year at least. So I don't know what the others did. Did they all give something like that? Or
they all fluctuated somewhere 1.15, 1.25. I think one of them was like 0.25. One of them was very low, but they would have the earning credits with an additional either fixed rate or something like that they would propose. So it's very difficult even with looking at earning credits rate to do an apples to apples comparison because some of them are recommending different structures. So this was, as a group, Bank of America was one of the better ones that we felt for those options.
But I know one bank was given over 2.5. So again, I don't know how that fits in with 1.5 or a half. So with the whole package, that's what we look at. Mr. Ditmore?
Did you ask the other banks, like, say Wells Fargo, hey, we got this, we're being offered X, Y, and Z from this,
No. So when we put out the RFP, we go into the cone of silence, and so we do not have any communication with the banks. We had communication with Truist as far as business was concerned, but we don't talk about the RFP with anybody until we've made a selection. So we did not put in there that we were expecting to do interviews with the banks. So we had our committee meetings to discuss our rankings and where we felt that the city should go in their direction. They were public meetings. Nobody showed up outside of the city staff that was part of this. But no, there was no conversation with the bank to say, hey, they give us this, you're offering 6 months, could you give us 12 instead? We didn't do any of that.
I have to tell you, Mayor, I agree with you. The hours that they have over there, it's problematic. And I think they open at 10 and close at 4 or whatever. It's a little bit, or 3 or whatever it is. I think it's problematic. I just, I agree with Mr. Frampus. We're looking at this Wells Fargo. It looks like or TD Bank, either one of them. I just cannot support us going over to Bank of America just based on what I've heard and based on what I've seen. with them. And 6 months ago, I wouldn't have ever said anything. But what I've seen now it raised my eyebrows. And I'm just telling you, it was a bad thing all the way around. So I don't know, would the council support going with number 2? I mean, that's the whole thing.
I don't know that there's that much difference between all of them. I mean, obviously there's personal opinions. That's why there's a bank on every corner. So I'm not sure. Let me see what Mr. Bentley has his light on. What are you thinking, sir?
I would support Bank of America. I would make a motion that we go with your recommendation and go with Bank of America. If we want to tell horror stories on banks, then I think we could all do that. I would say, for example, with your recommendation of Wells Fargo, I had the Marine Corps write me a check, and it went to Wells Fargo. They thought it was fraud for who could know what reason to reject it. I had to go back to the Marine Corps and say, you need to reissue the check. They did. Very nice. And when I hand carried the check that time to the bank, and they said, well, we'll cash your check, but we're going to charge you $10 because you're not a customer here. And I said, yeah, but the people that wrote the check are customers of yours. Doesn't matter. You're not a customer. It's a $10 fee. Went to the manager, zero help. So I swore off, not that I ever dealt with them, but I swore off ever dealing with them based on that kind of service. Now, I do like TD Bank, though. I mean, if you guys want to go to the third. But I'm still fine with putting in a motion that we go with what you recommended, since you guys did the research. And so, Mayor, my motion would be that we approve their recommendation, Bank of America.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Mr. McDowell?
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? Mr. Ditmore? Mr. Ditmore?
Did you pick them because they offered this incentive?
It was a big factor, but if we're being honest, Bank of America was not my first choice. I do like them. I do think they do great, but it's not. This was a committee decision. It was a committee decision that this was the best deal for the city. This was going to be the best business move for the city to go with them. They give us that free year, we'll call it. But their pricing even after that is better than some of the others, and it's better than what we currently have. And then their references came back, and it was good. The services they offer, it was just all around a good.
I'm concerned that some of the incentives they're offering is because they have to offer incentives to get the business. Usually when you're backed into a corner, you usually start offering incentives to try to get business because you're lacking in that business. If they were doing really well, they wouldn't have to offer incentives because people would be coming to them. So my question is, what was your first choice?
I would rather not say.
Well, no, your staff. I mean, if you looked at it, I mean, you speak freely.
My first choice was Wells Fargo, but I also had experience with them at my last city, so I knew the kind of relationship manager that I had. This was a different one. And I didn't know the relationship manager with Bank of America. But again, after we heard back from a city that was almost exactly our size and knowing that they were treated as if they were a city like Orlando or anything like that, that was a big deal because we think that we are the largest thing around. I know that we are important in the city of West Melbourne, but when you compare us to something like Orlando, relationship managers at banks don't always care. So if they can have bigger cities like that and us and be happy and treat us like we are them, then I think that's a big deal.
And you said your last city was where? Where was that?
Cape Canaveral.
In Cape Canaveral. So you dealt with in Brevard County, the Wells Fargo.
Yes, but that relationship manager I dealt with is no longer there.
Well, yeah, but your experience was local. It wasn't from out of town. So, okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Young.
We'll just drag this out just a little bit longer. I certainly understand why we'd be leaving Truist. Space Coast League of Cities, we're going through this change as Truist is all, and so we're looking as well. So I can certainly understand that. Bank of America, I have no love for at all, but I do trust the staff. And you had our top admin staff go through this and give their final blessing. It is a commercial count as opposed to an individual count. I'm kind of hoping that they give their commercial customers a little better. I do trust staff, so that's going to be my saving grace. Is I trust the people that you have on staff that went through this and had a meeting over it and hashed everything over. So thank you.
Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I do agree with Deputy Mayor Young. I think our staff is top-notch, so I am inclined to trust staff when they come forward with this type of recommendation. My question is, coming back to the contract, are we flexible if we instead do from 5 years to maybe half that, 2.5 or 3, to try them out, not necessarily cutting it to that 1, because I know that they may be waiving those fees and things for that first year, but could we potentially lessen the time on that contract instead of locking us in for 5 years?
I'm going to guess that the incentives that all of them offered were based on our 5-year request.
So that's a no?
He's guessing, he said.
Happy to work with them. I just don't know. We purposely did this neutral and kept it even to all of them, so they all proposed the same thing.
They didn't propose the same thing. That's the whole thing.
Well, we asked them to propose the same thing. Yes, they all offered different versions of their services.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor. That kind of raises the question of the exit on any contract. As we all know, that we spend a lot of times, too much time trying to negotiate, not talk about how do you get out of it. Is the language tied to the performance in any fashion that we can exit without much difficulty or penalty?
If I remember correctly, the contract, the draft contract that we proposed with the RFP had terminology in there that, due to lack of performance or anything like that, that we can look at terminating that contract. So, and that's something that can, I'm sure, be worked out, finalized when the contract's signed.
I would just encourage us to spend a little, make sure we've got our, especially if there's reservations and we approve this, exit is going to be extremely important, especially if we get into performance issues.
So can we, would the maker agree to, for a 3-year contract and instead of the 5-year contract?
I want to go with what she recommended, but I would agree with Mr. McDowell. There should be, if it's a performance issue, that there's an exit clause, but I think that should be true with anything that we do.
Yeah, but how are you going to ever measure that? What's that mean? Mr. Frampus?
Shouldn't we know the exit plan before we approve it? I mean, we're talking about approving what is presented.
My answer would be, I trust that you guys have got your ducks lined up and have done this before, and I'm sure it's been reviewed by the city manager and by the head of the, and perhaps even the attorney, but I just trust the staff that we've got, that they've researched and done this, and like you said, she wasn't even beholding to the people that she's recommending.
But I said they weren't all in an agreement, so.
Well, she just said from her personal experience, she's not, a big fan of them. But
It's not that I wouldn't recommend Bank of America. It's just that initially going into the meetings prior to our discussions, Wells Fargo was my top choice. We had the discussions, we talked about it, we kind of looked at it from different angles and everything, and leaving that, I was comfortable with Bank of America as our top choice based on all of the information that was provided at that time. As far as the contract terms, I know that it was reviewed by the city attorney before we posted the RFP, and
Which attorney was that?
it was Morris.
Okay.
So similar to all of our RFPs, when we go out for bid with contracts, for contractors with projects, we include our draft contract so that they know what they're getting into. Certainly from time to time, Morris and now the new city attorney will review those, and if there's any updates, they make changes. But I think we had a very lively debate about this banking service because there were the good part of the debate, different perspectives of the different people on the committee, which I think revealed ultimately that we came up with this recommendation. So we're asking the council to go with this recommendation. Very fair points that were made this evening. Probably similar conversation when we get to the point of talking about waste haulers. This is probably going to be a similar conversation of everyone having good and bad experiences with different waste haulers. Probably not a perfect bank out there, but we did the process. We did it publicly. We rated it publicly, and this is the recommendation that we're recommending the council take.
But again, 5 years is just a number. Why not 7? Why not 3? Why not till further notice? I mean, that's not magical by any means.
No, it was just the standard that we found across most of the cities that we looked at. We had, I want to say there were probably 8 to 10 examples that we pulled this information from, and so that was the number that we put, but we put that in the RFP. So that was one of the things one of the first lines in there says that we're looking to do a contract for 5 years with 5 additional 1-year renewals if, both parties agree. And so it's hard at this point to come back and say, actually, we're only going to do 3 years, but will you keep your pricing and incentives? Because they're looking at more of a long-term contract with us.
And they might say yes, they might say no. Mr. Frampus?
I'd like to see this go to a vote. We have a motion on the floor, and let's stop him hauling around about it. Let's vote on the motion. If it gets turned down, we can renegotiate.
All right. Mr. Bentley made the motion, and Mr. McDowell seconded the motion to use Bank of America for the next 5 years and then 1-year extensions. I don't remember how many of those.
1-year extensions.
5 1-year extensions. Is that up to them or up to us, or how?
Parties.
Both. Then it's both parties. Before that, it's just really them.
Well, 5 years is what we propose, so we can terminate for lack of performance.
And again, refresh my memory on what that would look like.
I honestly, I couldn't tell you because I've never dealt with lack of performance from a bank. So I don't have a specific way to say that this would be what happens and what ends it.
All right. All right. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Nay. Motion passes 4-3 with
Ditmore.
I'm just saying the order. Mr. Ditmore, Mr. Frampus, and Adams voting nay. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next up, we have a Public Works wants to buy a new boom mower.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Yes, Public Works, we're looking to replace our 2009 John Deere roadside mower with a smaller model, a 6110 model, with a Tiger Bangle arm on it with a 60-inch rotary mower. It's basically what we have now, but like I mentioned, it's a little smaller mower. And the new technology, the arm is a lot more efficient for the smaller mower we're looking at. We did budget $170,000 for this back in April when we were putting the budget together. And you can see we are over the budget by $645.88. We're going through a Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program, which was offered to us, and we got about a $20,000 savings versus the sheriff's contract that we normally purchase our equipment through. So we're trying this new Sourcewell out. So that's where we are. It's coming through Dobbs Equipment, which hopefully in a few months they'll be here in West Melbourne. So the service of it will be very easy for us to have it serviced on the tractor.
Mr. Bentley?
Thank you, Mayor. I did look at pricing for used ones, and this is actually a pretty good price.
Yes.
So I was kind of shocked by that. It's got a 1-year warranty. Is there any extended warranty offered?
I'm not sure, but I could find out. We could look into that.
Yeah, maybe it's cheaper. I don't know what the reliability of this is, so if that's something we can find out. But with that, I would make a motion that we award the contract to Tiger Bengal 2460 rotary mower for $170,645, and I think 88 cents.
Thank you. We have a motion. Mr. Frampus?
I'll second with a comment.
Thank you. Mr. Frampus, any discussion?
Is there any reason we didn't order a backup alarm on this?
Order a what?
The backup alarm, it's not checked off as being part of the price, and I think we should have a backup alarm on it.
Yeah, we will install one. We install it on everything we get.
And I also looked it up, like Mr. Bentley did, and it is significant on the retail price. It was almost $35,000 cheaper if he bought it retail. Does this have hydraulics on the front of it also, like I'm seeing in the pictures? You didn't give us any pretty pictures, so I was. And do we have attachments on our current machine that could be used on this one, like forklifts or any of that, or?
The only attachment we have that we could use on this is an auger that we do for swales.
And that's the other thing, I didn't see any hitch assemblies set up for this.
It's the arm that we use for mowing. That's all we use it for.
And are we going to be able to keep the other one in service?
No, we're going to trade.
Trading that in. Okay.
We're getting $22,000.
Okay, so that's the Samurai. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. What's the lifespan on a tractor like this?
Lifespans depends on how they're maintained. Unfortunately, ours, a lot of the city's equipment prior to my arrival wasn't maintained on a regular basis. So there is a user operator. Different people were using it. There was no consistency, and that creates wear and tear on the equipment. Now we have operators for basically one piece of equipment for one operator, which is a night and day performance for the equipment.
So how long with our usage do you expect this to last?
This should last 15 plus years.
Okay, and how long did our previous tractor last
Well,
being used differently?
It's an 09.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was when we bought it.
Years coming up.
Okay.
The problem with the old one, again, is we just put $18,000 into it the last 2 years to keep the arm, the hydraulics. The tractor is a solid tractor. It's a John Deere, but the hydraulics and the arm, unfortunately, is the wear and tear, the moving parts. The 60-inch rotary deck won't stay up by itself anymore. It just it'll just flop down. So it's just the wear and tear on that aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.
And if you go and look at a extended policy, how do we pay for that since that's not part of this bid?
I can find out what it is and reapproach you with that and let you know if there's a difference between a few years, 5 years, or whatever they offer.
There you go. And the second question, semi-related to this, is sometimes you say we go up to sheriff's bid because they already pre-bid it. What made you skip that and go on to get a better deal?
There's different platforms out there that we can belong to. Apparently, when we were looking into the pricing for this back in April, it was brought to our attention that, yes, there is a different source out there. The reason why Sourcewell is cheaper is because they don't have a contract where they're locked in for a year. So this price could change next week. It could change in 6 months. The sheriff's contract, they're locked in for the year. So obviously, they put a different price because they know they have to live the whole year. But for Sourcewell, you could call them tomorrow and they'll say, no, the tractor's another $10,000 now.
Yeah.
So that's the difference with Sourcewell.
Understand. It's good to shop around. All right. Mr. Frampus?
Yeah, just a follow-up question, Mark. You said the tractor was still in good shape. It's just the arm on the old one that's the problem? is there any value into keeping that as a yard tractor or something to haul stuff around in? Because for $20,000 on a full-size tractor, that's a lot of value I see. And I'd rather pay the extra $20,000 and have a good machine that you can, it's going to be have value to us. Is there any value, do you think?
We don't, the unfortunate part is there's really no other attachments the city has for it. So it doesn't come with a front bucket. There's not a front bucket on it. It was just designed for the cutting arm. So
you couldn't hitch anything up to it or use it for a yard tractor?
No, because it would just basically be dragging stuff. I mean, there's.
Okay.
I mean, unless, you know, we did purchase, but I don't know with the hydraulics being the way they are.
Well, you said the tractor was still in good shape. That's why it went back to.
Right, for a tractor, for somebody who's going to use, you know, coming from up north, John Deere, you know, that's the.
Good tractor, yeah, for sure.
You know, and people buy them for, you know, sawmills and all different things, and they, you know, so that's, you know, but for us, because we have no other attachments for it, I can't see investing more money to.
Except the auger.
Well, but the augers.
You need the hydraulics, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion second on the floor. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up is City Council reports. Councilmember Pat Bentley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment. I did attend the police pension meeting in the last few weeks, and I will put together a little 1 or 2 page summary and present it at the next meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Young? No report. Thank you. Councilmember McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor and fellow council members. I have attended the face-to-face sustainability work group that was held at the zoo. Also, the Seniors Expo for Transportation, the Melbourne Chamber Business Small Business Forum, and the Honor Flight Luncheon held at Smoky Bones, and a few others that I don't need to go into. But we also met with KBB, and if I can lean on the city manager, or he can hold off and talk about in his report on the composting. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. After hearing from a few residents with concerns about walking or biking in our city, I signed up for a webinar regarding pedestrian safety strategies for cities. So I thought that was really beneficial, looking at the size of West Melbourne that we are currently, as well as the size of the city we're expected to grow to once we finish, you know, deciding what we do with that remaining percentage of our city. So I'm going to take both a combination of resident concerns along with some strategies that was brought up at the webinar and meet with our city manager to see if any of them may work for the future of the city and things to consider maybe for our comprehensive plan going forward. Additionally, we had a Stomp Out Bullying walk with Central Middle School that was in the past week, and they participated with the West Melbourne Police Department. There was a great turnout from parents, staff, the students, and so we took a nice walk down Minton Road and crossed over to the school, but that was just a really good time with the students and everybody else that came out to participate with that, so that was really great. And I did want to comment just in terms of the agenda. As an individual with a disability, I was really excited about the coordinator that came on for the Field of Dreams. I've heard from quite a few people in our community. It was built with, I believe, a lot of children in mind, and a lot of those children have now become young adults and adults in our community. And so I think as our community is growing, that park should also do the same. So I think this coordinator is going to bring a lot of value. So it was really great to see her introduced today. I do also have a question for the city manager at the end when his report is coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Frampus?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Ditmore? And then I'll finish up. Just want to remind everybody that November 11th here at the Veterans Center, we are honoring some of our veterans. Deputy Mayor Young and I will try to give them all their flags, and so everybody, the public's invited here at 10:30 till noon, right here in the big room. So try to put that on your calendar if you would. And there's some other veterans things going on, November 22nd. Also, November 17th, Reflections of Love. Remember last couple years, they did something at our park with the purple lights and stuff. This year, they're kind of downsizing that and doing it at the Cocoa, their big area out there in the city of Cocoa downtown, and that's at 6 o'clock. But anybody's able to attend that. Also went to a number of things. The Stomp Out Bullying was a good event. It's great to have so many Central Middle School kids out there. We probably had 200 at least, would you guess? City manager huffing and puffing going down the road trying to count.
A lot.
Yeah, there were a lot of red shirts, and I believe they brought in some guests later on, and they did some more things and working with the young students there. Also been talking to Home Depot about some projects, another project that they're working on the city here at this plant right here, and also attended a couple local meetings as well. That's all I have. So if we can get the city manager to give us his report.
So real brief, had an opportunity to meet with KBB with Councilmember McDowell. They were off to a slow start, and so we talked about some different strategies for them, and one of the items that they are looking to do to increase membership is instead of charging the $30 a month, they're looking to give 100 West Melbourne residents free service. And we've been told by KBB that that's off to a huge success, and they're rapidly approaching the 100 users. So if you're interested, please reach out. Just trying to work with them. We're coming up on 6 months of them being up and running, and so probably after about a year of them up and running, we'll take a evaluation and see how things are working out for KBB. But they've been real receptive to some of the ideas. So hopefully that works out, continues to work out well.
Tim, I have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
And how many members did they have before they started this initiative?
They are currently at 4 members.
Well, now they're at 30.
So they had 4 members for how long?
They had 4 paying members. They are now, was it 38 they said? Sorry, 30.
38 total now.
So the first 6 months they had 4. Okay, we're just going to be tracking this.
We're off to a slow start there.
And that included, I think, our previous city manager, Mr. McDowell. You were paying at that time. Were you one of the ones? So I think we had maybe. Okay, thank you.
Slow start, but they're moving forward now. So flyers are here. If anybody's got any questions about KBB, as Councilman Ditmore mentioned, Tom Bradford and I and our consultant had our meeting with the county fire leadership group today and talked about some of the items that we have been discussing with them relative to fire service. And so that meeting ended at about 10 minutes to 5. And so head's still processing a little bit some of the information that was shared, but ultimately had to have that meeting. That meeting was postponed. It was originally supposed to happen during the hurricane. So with them being emergency government, that got pushed back to this week. And so continuing to try to nail down the most detailed information that we can with the fire study, so that when the consultant and the city staff present the fire study on the 13th of December, not only will there be one-on-one briefings with the council before the council meeting, we'll have the study out to you ahead of time, and then be able to have a comprehensive, fully cooked study that we can stand behind with some of the facts and figures that are in there. And that's been some of the challenge in the transition. You know, been working with our acting city attorney, been working to try to get, you know, he's been a big help, but ultimately want to get our new city attorney on board and be able to review some of the final recommendations that might come out of that. So it's a big picture item. Appreciate all the patience in getting to that study, but it is comprehensive. I think it's going to be, it's going to answer a lot of the questions that people have out there about the fire service that many of the council have, and certainly address the original question, which was, based on our MSTU and fire assessment fees, can the city look at an alternative option, and is that viable, and what goes into that and how that would look. And so we've spent a lot of time and energy trying to get good data that's cross-referenced and all of our due diligence done on that. So I know everybody's in a hurry to get it, but we really want to make sure that when we get that to everybody, that it's right and the information there is good.
Mr. Frampus?
So are you saying you do not have a completed copy of that study yet?
We do not have we're still working on sections of it, and the only thing that we have finalized is that run report that was kind of the initial document to base.
So they didn't give you a draft or anything yet?
I have no draft. I have.
No.
We have talked about different sections and different options.
I thought they were supposed to have it back by October.
We are continuing to effort on it to try to get it complete so that it's all done. That's been a challenge.
So, just so I'm clear, do they have it complete and they're holding it until we ask for it?
No, we're still working through the different sections.
I don't understand what that means.
Well, there's different sections, different options. So there is no document. There is no.
Well, they're going to present us with all the options, correct?
Correct. And that's why we're still working through all the options. Make sure that they're all correct. And there's no misinformation there. We don't want any misinformation. We don't want any confusion. We don't want anything that would be misstrued by anybody. We want it to be the final document that is accurate and true.
And if you haven't seen the document yet, how can you be working through the sections? I don't understand when you say, are they working through the sections, or are you working through the section with them? And if that's the case, then you've seen the document already.
No, there is no document that we've reviewed. They're working through the different options and the feasibility of those. And then we cross-reference that information, check with the county, check with the data to make sure it's right, double-check anything that we can. So
their date is when to get it to us?
They're coming December, or we have a council meeting December 13th. So they're coming the Monday, Tuesday to do one-on-ones and then presenting the information at the council meeting on the 13th.
Thank you.
Mr. Ditmore?
Were you able, the last council meeting, Mr. Frampus brought up about separating out the rescue portion from the actual fire services. And it did look on the, I think it was their website or a cover sheet that I saw on something that it stated that they are 100% responsible for all ambulatory runs, that they take care of all of that. That's one of their things that they do.
Talking to the mic more.
I'm talking into it. It's just not, oh, okay.
It's kind of coming in and out.
Coming in and out, okay. So anyways, when we first started looking at this a year and a half ago, I was told that the MSTU funds, the ad valorem above-the-line tax that's based on evaluations of the residents' homes was used to fund the rescue portion, and that the fire service fee was used to fund running for fire calls and actual like fire services. So the MSTU was something different, and there was also a second part of the MSTU that had something to do with 911 services. So that when we carved out the MSTU, it was carved into two spots. One would stay with the county because we don't do 911 here, and that the other portion would come to us. So a portion of that would actually come out. So there was like $3 million or $3.9 million for this. $1.2 million would come out of the MSTU, but part of the MSTU would stay for 911 service. That's what we were originally told. Is that changed?
That is a great question. The fire service in West Melbourne is paid for in two parts, an MSTU and a fire assessment fee. Both those items are for fire service, nothing to do with transport.
What about rescue, that rescue portion?
That's just for fire service. So if the city was to go its own path, both the MSTU And the fire assessment fee would disappear.
which is right now currently around 5.2, 5.4 million, somewhere in that range.
Call it 5 million and change,
So 5 million change.
round numbers.
So the county still would have to do all the rescue runs, and we're just going to do our fire department runs, which is less than $1,000 a year. Is that correct? Based on the information we have.
So that conversation was had today, and we're working through some of those details. Those are the very important details that we need to get finalized before we present to this council.
So, but we're not required to take that portion over. They still would have to do all that, because that's 2,600 runs a year versus the out of the 3,600. Am I right on this? Or I just want to make sure we're
That's
following.
one of the very important details we
Okay.
need to get finalized before we come forward with this.
So
This is a very complicated.
So I want the council to understand that this is the county commissioners not wanting to tax appropriately through the ad valorem tax, and because they don't want to charge with the fees correctly. This is why it's so disproportionate. I'm really concerned that they're telling their staff people that they're going to close multiple fire stations if we do this. Well, we barely just have a little over. We're 3,600 runs. They do 3,200 runs out of the station over here at Minton Corners. So we're looking at 400 or 500 extra runs. Well, why would they have to close 2 stations? Well, if we're a net donor, then I would understand that, if we're a net donor. And it seems to be, I've heard that net donor phrase over and over and over again. So I believe, and just when I spoke to them a year and a half ago, back in March of 21, when I told them, I said, you're not taxing correctly, and you're forcing these fire service fee, which is a disproportionate fee, a disproportionate way of taxing, because you don't want to do the ad valorem raising taxes to cover the fire service fee. That's what they need to do. They're going to have to do that to the people that live in the county or the unincorporated areas to cover their services. And they don't want to do that, so they push down this fee, and then we end up becoming a net donor because of all the homes that we have in our community. And the more we build out, the more we're paying into this. And the Brevard County firefighters do a great job. I'll say what I said back in March of 21. I said that when I spoke in front of the commissions. I'm saying it again tonight. I'm not just saying it because one of their people's here. That I've said it time and time. And it's not them. Our beef is with the county commissioners about the way they're doing the taxing. If they tax it appropriately, it would be fine. Anyways, I'm more concerned about what they're telling their people, and I'm also concerned about them giving us some kind of offer to a temporary. Whatever they give to us can be reversed after. If we're not in a contract with them, it could be reversed later down the road, and we'd be starting this process all over again. And 5 years from now, we may not have property. We may have to use eminent domain to actually condemn somebody's property to build a fire station because we may not have property to build on in 5 years. And I don't want to go through that process. None of us would want to have to do that. But, Mr. Rode, I have one last question for you. And the size of for how many other cities of our size or close to our size in the Brevard County or any other counties that's close around here don't have their own fire department?
We are the only one that doesn't have our own fire department.
And I would say it's safe to say that when we reach that 40,000 number or that 30,000 number, we should probably have our own fire services. I mean, we probably need to as a growing city. Is that?
I know the council wants to get to this topic, and I want to get to this topic.
I know it's been 18 months, so I mean, you can understand that we're, that's
absolutely. I understand the frustration that the process has taken has taken time, but when all the information is out, we can all be on the same page of all the language that we're talking about, because I think there's some nuances in fire medics and versus, fire paramedics versus fire EMS versus.
Did they allude to you that they were going to be closing multiple fire stations? Have they ever told you that?
They have not. We're talking with them about what solutions we can find.
Are they still talking about
the concern that the council had, which was the cost?
Did they still talking about co-locating with us if we do a station?
It's my understanding that they're co-located in most of Brevard County and in the firehouses, the communities the cities that do have fire stations, they're co-located in a lot.
Were you a part of a conversation when they had that conversation? And I think Mr. Morgan was, obviously, where they talked about the closing station at Minton Corners because of its age. Were you a part of that conversation?
I was not part of.
Okay.
They haven't discussed any strategy like that.
Please tell them to let's keep moving on this thing so we can get to the bottom of all this. Thank you.
Ms. Adams, you're next.
Not related to our fire department, because I didn't think that was on our discussion today, but a quick question for you. With the city being behind on our fire inspections, I know that we were introduced to the employee today. How long until you think we're caught up with the addition of the new fire inspector?
Boy, I hate to give a date, but we did prioritize them based on usage so that we hit the, highest priorities first. I could get a date for you, but I don't want to say June 1st and then be wrong. So I'm happy to check with our building official and get the right date to get caught up.
That'd be great. I just know, with the concern of some of them are behind, what that means for the city if, not that we want anything to happen, but if something happens, is there any concern there?
Yeah, we're phenomenal employee that we were able to pick up and steal away from another agency. There's certain, if you have any younger people looking for career advice, building, anything to do with building inspection, boy, point them in that direction. That's a very good field to be in right now.
Thank you.
Mr. McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to just quickly follow up on this discussion about the fire, because I as well get inquiries about this. And I think it's important, extremely important, that I not say one way or the other, especially because we're talking about people's lives in business, and I think it's important that we don't send different messaging. So I feel the pain of the delay or the process taking as long as it is, but it is important we speak from a singular voice. But I would encourage us to expedite this process as soon as possible, because the longer it takes, the more angst, and everywhere I seem to go, I hear that same issue as well. So I do understand that. Thank you.
All right, I think that's all the speakers, and even if we decided today, it still takes a good 3 years to have the first fire truck on the road, I'm sure. All right, seeing all this, meeting's adjourned. Our next meeting is the 22nd of this month.